The Stranger Things podcast, episode number 2, The Weirdo on Maple Street.
Elle? No adults, just us and some meatloaf. Don't worry, they won't tell anyone about you. They promise, right?
We never would have upset you if we knew you had superpowers. Ow!
Welcome to the Stranger Things podcast. I'm Darrell.
And I'm Addi.
What are you laughing about already?
I'm hilarious.
Because I said number 2?
Yeah.
The fun and joy of living with junior high people in the house.
I'm in high school. What are you talking about?
Technically, you're not yet.
Technically, I already enrolled.
You haven't started yet. I'm still holding on to the fact that my baby girl is not yet in high school.
Oh, but I am.
Not yet. All right. Well, we're so glad that you have tuned into today's episode where we're talking about Chapter 2 of Stranger Things. And Addi, who wrote and directed this episode?
It is written and directed by the Duffer Brothers.
Excellent. And who are the Duffer Brothers?
The creators of Stranger Things. Are we going to do this every episode?
How are they connected to one another?
They're brothers.
Excellent. All right, you passed again with the most basic. No, we're not going to do it every week. I just thought it'd be fun to do it for the second week. So, when we get started today, I think we should start by talking about the title of this week's episode, The Weirdo on Maple Street. Now, again, if you're just joining us for the first time, the premise of our podcast is that Addi has watched every single episode of the series, which is season 1 at the point where we are recording this, and I have not. I'm watching them an episode at a time, and I'm trying my best to stay spoiler free. Although when I get to my predictions section, then I'll talk a little bit about how I think something that has spoiled me might have come into play with that prediction. So it's pretty much impossible to stay completely spoiler free. I mean, it's kind of taken over pop culture, this show has. But one thing I have successfully succeeded in doing so far is I have no idea what any of the episode titles are. So literally last night, I watched this episode for the first time, and I go to Google Docs to create the show notes where we're going to take all the notes that you and I want to talk about for this episode, this podcast episode. And it's at that moment where I'm just about to watch the episode that I look to see what the episode is called. In fact, you and Colby were in the room when I did that, and I saw that it was called The Weirdo on Maple Street, and I had a little freak out moment because I instantly recognized that this title is paying homage to a Twilight Zone episode. And you and I talked about, I think in the episode 0, the preview episode, we talked about Twilight Zone just a little bit in passing. I am a huge fan of the original Twilight Zone series, and so this title, The Weirdo on Maple Street, is a shout out to the Twilight Zone episode called The Monsters Are Due on Maple Street. But I'm not going to tell you about that episode. Instead, Addie's going to do it, because I got to tell you, I'm a proud dad at this moment. I was going to. She and I was just about to hit the record button, and I was like, oh, I've got to put together my notes on the Maple Street episode. And while I was even attempting to do that, you laid it all out for me from memory. So I'm just going to sit back, have a proud dad moment while you tell the audience about that episode of The Twilight Zone.
All right, so basically, there's this street in some town, I forgot, and the electricity goes out in one of the houses, and then another, and then they're all, all the people living on that street just go outside, and then they're like, what's going on? What's happening? And they send one person to go down to the next street to see if the electricity is out over there too. While he's gone, they keep arguing and stuff, and they're like, what if there's some alien? Because some little kid's just like, hey, I read this comic book one time that there was this alien who was taking over, and stuff like that. So that kind of gets the idea started. And so eventually this guy returns and they kill him because they think he's an alien. And they realize that they're going crazy and stuff. And then they keep fighting. And at the end of the episode, 2 actual aliens are revealed. And they're like, okay, if we turn off their electricity for a couple minutes or, however long it was, then they'll start to take down each other and we don't even have to do anything. So yeah, that's basically that episode.
Very good. That's right. That's really, really accurate. So nice job. I'm very proud of you for knowing a Twilight Zone episode.
Thanks, bro. I had to watch that in school last year.
Did you really?
Or not last year, the year before, 7th grade.
So I was going to say all those years of making you watch the Twilight Zone marathon with me paid off, but that's not it after all.
Nope. Just one thing we did in class in 7th grade.
Well, that's okay. I'm glad you know it. It makes me proud. Well, so that's really interesting. And when you think about how electricity and lights flickering and stuff like that tie into this show, I think that's the first thing. The piece of alien factoid that you mentioned there, that's interesting too. And I've got a little piece I'm going to talk about at some point on our episode about that. But it's just a great classic episode of the Twilight Zone. And it's hard for me to speculate on which pieces of that episode might come into play. I mean, we don't really see the townspeople at odds with each other yet. We don't see it in this episode, but with the events that happen at the end of the episode, maybe that's yet to come. I don't know, but I'll find out eventually. Nanis is just looking at me like she knows something I don't, because lots of things that I don't.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, let's talk about here's what I do know. I know what's up in the outline for this episode. So let's go over that before we get it too much further. The next thing up is our episode recap. Then Addi and I are going to spend the most of our time today discussing this episode and the things that stuck out to us, the things we liked, etc. And then we're going to take some listener feedback in our notes from the Upside Down segment. Then we have quote of the week. We had a hard time picking the quote of the week this week. You heard one of our options as we started this episode. You're going to hear our ultimate winner when we get down to that section. I've got some predictions, and then, of course, we have some news and things like that in our Hawkins report, and we'll close out with the meme of the week.
The meme of the week.
But let's get it started here with our episode recap. And I meant to do this last week, and I'm sorry that I forgot. I put it in the notes this week. I want to thank the folks over at the Stranger Things Wiki, which is strangerthings.wikia.com. I'm pulling these episode recaps. I'm reading them from that website. It's a fan website, and you can find, as I said, strangerthings.wikia.com, all kinds of great information over there. So to all the collaborators over there, thank you for putting these great things together, and I hope we're doing you justice by including these in our podcast each week. But here's the recap for The Weirdo on Maple Street. After finding 11 in the woods, the boys bring her back to Mike's house for the night. Lucas thinks this is a terrible idea and demands they tell Mike's mom right away. But Mike points out that would just get them all grounded since they weren't supposed to be out looking for Will. Mike gives her clean clothes and builds her a pillow fort to sleep in. The next day, Mike tries to get 11 to sneak out of the house and to the front door to make it look like she stumbled upon the house, and that way his mom can help. 11 rejects his idea, telling Mike that bad people are looking for her and that telling someone about her whereabouts will only make things worse. Meanwhile, Joyce tells Chief Hopper about the creepy, static phone call she received. Hopper is reluctant to believe her story, but admits the charring on the phone from the surge of electricity is weird. Later on, Joyce heads to her workplace to buy a new phone and demands 2 weeks' pay in advance from her boss. He shows some sympathy for Joyce after he realizes her kid is missing and gives in. Back at Mike's house, 11 notices a picture of the 4 boys and points at Will. She knows him, but just before Mike can ask more questions, his mom comes home. Mike was supposed to be at school. Mike rushes 11 to hide in his bedroom closet, which freaks her out. A flashback is shown where 11 is being dragged to a dark cell in the Hawkins laboratory. Mike comforts her, and 11 trusts him enough to close the door. Lucas begins to trust her too, as 11 uses her telekinetic abilities to close Mike's bedroom door while Dustin and Lucas look on in astonishment. The cops find a drain pipe in the woods which leads to the Hawkins laboratory, and they believe Will might have crawled through it. This is possible as 11 uses the boys' Dungeons & Dragons set to show them Will is hiding from a monster. Joyce receives another creepy static call, which surges with electricity and burns her again. The lights in her house begin to turn on one by one, leading to Will's bedroom. Suddenly, one wall begins to move and take on some weird shapes. Joyce quickly runs out of the house and into her car, but later turns and goes back into the house. This all happens while Barb, Nancy's friend, feels left out as the third wheel at Steve's party. Barb sits near the pool by herself, with Jonathan taking her picture before leaving. Jonathan fails to notice the mysterious monster as it abducts Barb. All right, Addison, are you ready to talk about this episode?
Let's do it.
Okay, well, the episode basically starts where the previous episode left off. I mean, it seems like the only thing that's happened is they have taken 11 from the woods back to Mike Wazowski's house.
Mike Wheeler's house.
That's what I said. And so we see them all still dripping wet down in the basement. And man, this is such a fun scene. I love the actors. All the actors they chose. Lucas, Dustin, Mike, 11. They're all so good. They're fantastic. And they just feed off of each other so well. And all the scenes with them are my favorite, all of them. But this scene here at the beginning was just fantastic. What'd you think? You're like going crazy over there. I know you loved it too.
Yeah, I love them. They're all, I mean, it's even better that they're all like my age, not, 6 years older than me. Like, Disney Channel whenever I was a little kid. Yeah, I love this scene. I want to know how they snuck 11 into his house, though. Because his parents are just not observant at all. Right.
I was wondering that, too, how they got her down.
I mean, Nancy was sneaking boys into her room, and they were sneaking a girl down to the basement.
They're not going to be winning any Parenting of the Year awards, is that what you're saying?
Basically.
So you're saying we should do a better job, make sure that we do a better job with you to make sure you don't sneak any boys in the house?
I'm not saying that. I'm just saying they're not very good. No need to top them or anything.
Well, trust me, I will when it comes to that. Okay, so they have 11 back in the house. Lucas thinks that she's escaped from the somewhat nearby, crazy hospital. I loved Mike in this scene. He is super cool. Like, Lucas is losing his stuff, thinking that she's crazy and they need to stay away from her. They need to kick her out and just be done with her. And Dustin's kind of leaning towards Lucas's point of view, but Mike is having none of it. Like, he's so caring and compassionate. He's the voice of reason here. He's the one willing to give her a chance. And of course she picks up on that, and he's the first one she communicates with. And then also because, she's at his house, they develop a bond that then earns trust that he's then able to, tell the other guys about and stuff like that. But it all starts with, in this scene, Mike being not willing to just go with Lucas and the guys. He's willing to form his own opinion and stick to his guns. And I was really impressed with that.
Yeah, Mike is so nice.
Yeah. Did you notice the pattern on the sofa that she's sitting on?
No.
It's like this old West, like wagon wheels and stuff like that. That couch, I think every household in America had a couch with that pattern or some similar pattern to it back in the 80s. It was.
Did you?
Yeah, we did, or someone that I know did. I don't remember if it was us or if it was grandma and grandpa or one of my friends, maybe all of the above, because it just like, I saw that pattern and I'm just like, all these rushes of nostalgia, these memories just started flooding back, and I couldn't quite figure out where they belonged. But Yeah, that couch, it was everywhere. That was and browns and tans and oranges and stuff like that was real popular back then. So,
Ugly.
yeah, we think so now, but at the time, not so much.
Cool.
Okay. All right. The next thing we see is Joyce. Hopper comes over, and Hopper tells her that they found nothing, and she tries to tell him about the phone call. Well, he'd already heard about it from was it Flo? Is the dispatcher's name. He's not really believing her, and she hits him below the belt here because she's like, it was Will's breathing, and he's like, how can you tell? And she says, wouldn't you be able to tell if you heard your own daughter breathing? And she knows good and well his daughter is dead. And that look that he gave her, I mean, that was a low blow. Don't
Salt.
you think? Yeah, that's like gaping wound pouring in the salt, not being salty. That's like salt infestation. Pouring alcohol and salt in the wound.
Rip.
I felt bad for him. I feel bad for her too. I'll talk more about her. I want to save my thoughts on Joyce for a particular scene, but gosh, I just thought that was a low blow even for the situation that she's in.
Yeah, I think he should have believed her, but I don't think she should have said that. I mean, that's you don't say that about someone.
I know, right? Yeah. I don't know. When this is all said and done, it sounded like there might be some history between these two. So maybe when this is all said and done, they'll have something that they can comfort each other. I'm not saying build a relationship. It looks like he's got a lady friend anyway. I'm just saying maybe they can find a place to console and strengthen each other. But I don't know. Right now, that was salty.
Don't say salty.
Why not? Am I too old to say salty?
Yeah, you are.
Oh,
You're like 80.
I'm a little less than that, maybe half that, plus one.
Nah.
Okay. Okay. Now, I want to get your thoughts on the walkie-talkies. We've seen these quite a few times already in the 2 episodes. They're pretty important piece of technology. Back in the day, Addison, before everyone had smartphones, this was how we communicated with each other. We didn't have text messaging. You had walkie-talkies and hoped that your friends were close enough to where you were that the walkie-talkie was in range.
That's great. Don't care.
For us, we had walkie-talkies that would kind of stretch from one end. This was the struggle with walkie-talkies. Like, if you were in the same room with the person you're talking to, you can hear them, right? Like, what's the point of having a walkie-talkie? I can hear you speaking. So you want to get far enough away where you can't hear their voice, but then, we could only afford the TG&Y brand, which was the Walmart before there was Walmart, and like the real cheap stuff. And so then you get to we lived in a trailer house, so you get to the other side of the trailer house, so you can't hear each other in the same room, but then the walkie-talkie's out of range, so it was a bad situation.
Nice job. So were the kind that they were using, were those like the good kind?
Yeah, it's a good question. I did look those up. It was a Realist or Realtek or something like that, was the brand name. I'm not familiar with it. You can go on eBay and find some. I found a pair for like $25.
Can we get them?
I don't know if they worked or not. I didn't really look.
Who cares?
Wouldn't it be cool? Like, 'cause I've got like right behind you on that shelf are some glasses just like the Observer used in Fringe. And so, I mean, those work. They're like little folding binocular glasses, but I wouldn't care if they worked or not. Something like that. It would just go on my knick-knack shelf in here.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be cool?
I could have one in my room and you could have one in here.
Oh, what a great idea.
Never mind. I'll keep both.
Talk to yourself.
Yeah. I'm my only friend.
Yeah. Anyway, I just thought it was again a nice little nostalgia because I see you. It's like every time I go into your room, you're in there texting with your friends or Instagramming with your friends, or you're on some app with your friends, or FaceTiming, or you're always communicating with your friends, and you take for granted this powerful computer that you have in your pocket that allows you to do so many magical things that when I was your age, we could only dream of. Well, they just put the man on the moon. That's not true. They'd done that like 20 years before, but still.
Dang, you really are old.
I'm not doing myself any favors here, am I?
Nope, not at all.
All right, well, let's move on by talking about another piece of old technology.
You?
You're so mean. The 22-inch TV. Now, what were your thoughts when he was like 22-inch? That's like 11 times bigger than Dustin's.
10. He said 10.
Oh. Maybe I just wanted it to be 11. Because, 11.
Just stop.
Okay. So really, what did you think about like the 22-inch? Did you have any thoughts like, oh my gosh, 22 inches, that's so tiny? Or did you think anything?
I was like, oh, it's a small little bean.
Yeah. I mean,
how big is ours? The one in the living room?
That's like a 46-inch.
There's this tiny.
Yeah. We have that one upstairs. It's an old style TV, CRT.
That's still up there?
I think we might have gotten rid of it. But even that one was like a 32-inch. Yeah. So, I mean, it's impossible for you to understand the evolution of the TV. And even me, like my first memory of a TV was one very similar to what they have on the show. And, it had like 20 channels. Like each channel was a push button. There was no dial. There was no remote. Like Dad said, change the channel, put it on channel 9. And the remote was me or your Uncle Nate getting up and pushing the button. So the technology's come so far. And then we had the rabbit ears, like they had to maneuver them around to try to get the signal. It was the antenna, like tuning in, like a radio. You don't know what tuning in a radio is, do you? My goodness, folks. I'm feeling old right now.
You are.
If you could see the look that she's giving me, she has no clue what I'm talking about.
Well, okay, I know, like, if you don't, like, okay, if I want to listen to, like, KJ 103 or something, and it's, like, so the channel is, like, 102.7, if it's, like, on 102.8 or something, it's, like...
That's right. But even that's a different type of tuning. And what you're talking about is you press a button and it instantly goes from 102.8 down to 102.7 and it's clear. What I'm talking about is a knob, and you would turn the knob.
Oh yeah, Grandma has one of those.
Slightly. Okay. You'd have to kind of fine tune it back and forth until you got it just right to hear that channel. I mean, you're getting to that frequency and that's the way those TVs were. You'd move the antennas around and things like that so that you could do the same thing for a TV reception. You had to fine tune it to be able to get the signal strong and be able to see it and hear it without it being staticky. It was a rough time of life. We survived it, and somehow when you're my age and you'll be telling your kids about this archaic smartphone that you had to carry around in your pocket to communicate with your friends instead of being able to do it with their mind or whatever they'll be doing at that age. And they'll look at you like you're looking at me and going, wow, Mom, what are you, 80? And you'll be like, no, I'm half that plus 1. You'll be there one day.
Will I? Will I really?
I hope so. I hope so. I hope you get the taste of your own medicine. All right. Let's get back to the episode then. We see a great moment and then flashback between Will and his brother Jonathan. This was cool because we haven't really seen them on screen together.
Oh, yeah, we haven't.
Up until this point. I speculated last week that maybe Will was the favored child. And after seeing this episode, I mean, I didn't get that impression at all, at least not from Jonathan's perspective. I didn't get any sense of jealousy or I don't know what else other words to use from Jonathan. It seemed like he really, like they were there for each other and they had a really cool bond. And in this case, they were listening to The Clash and Should I Stay or Should I Go? We're going to hear that song, more at the end of the episode. But I don't know. Did you have any thoughts on this particular scene?
So you can hear their mom in the background yelling at their dad, and my first thought is that like they were like their parents were still together and like they were in the same room, but then Jonathan said something, or I think it was something like he's not coming, something like that, and I realized, oh, they're on the phone. So he gets up and he closes the door, and then he sees that Will's kind of upset, so he like tells him, okay, has he ever been there for you? Has he ever taken you to anything that you actually want to do and not just like baseball games? Like, has he ever taken you to the arcade? Mm-hmm. And then he tells him like, you shouldn't like things because people tell you to. And then he's like, so you actually like The Clash, huh? And Will's like, yeah. So then they just keep dancing. And I think that was really cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Really sad that the dad is, just not going to show up. He's going to blow off his son. And even then, like you said, it sounded like they were going to do something the dad wanted to do and not something that Will wanted to do. Not a really good role model, is he?
Nope.
You should appreciate your dad more often.
Let's talk about that later.
Did you notice the movie poster on the wall in that scene?
What movie poster?
Have you heard of a movie called The Evil Dead?
No.
We're going to have to fix that. Evil Dead is, there's about 4 movies, I think, now in this series. And this was the first one, which came out in 1981, if memory serves correctly. It's
Probably not, since you're old.
Shutty. It's a cult classic now. I don't know how it did back in the day. I mean, he's got a poster of it on his wall. But have you ever seen any anything, pictures or posters or figurines or anything of a guy with a chainsaw on his hand?
Yeah, I've never heard of this. That looks really scary, but yeah, I've never heard of it.
Well, The Evil Dead, and then The Evil Dead 2 is really, most people consider to be the better or even the best of all of them. And I would agree with that. But in that poster, you see like a woman getting dragged underground by like some like zombie skeleton monster hand type of thing. So anyway, just plant that in the back of your mind, and I'm going to come back to that later. Okay?
Okay.
All right. Okay. Speaking of Joyce, we were talking about her a moment ago. She needs to go get a new phone. She goes to her job where she's been at for 10 years, never missed a day, worked Thanksgiving, worked Christmas.
Eve.
Yeah. I wanted to punch her boss in the throat.
Face.
Throat.
Face.
I mean, not only was he being a jerk to her by not wanting to give her an advance, giving her all these excuses, but he seemed to have no sympathy to her whatsoever about her son. He should have given her the phone. Like the moment she walked in and said that she needed a phone, he should have said, take it, don't worry about it.
And whenever she walked in, his first thought was, oh, are you here to work?
Yeah. I hope she gets to quit that job and get something better by the time the show is over. I can't believe that guy did that. That's one of the most heartless, soulless things I've seen. Totally wanted to punch that guy in the throat. All right, Eddie, let me ask you a question.
Yes.
We see, while she's out getting the phone, of course, Jonathan is out. I think he's on his way to visit Lonnie at this point. He hasn't got to Lonnie yet. So the house is vacant. The scientists show up. What the heck? What the heck is going on? Like they went to the shed? Were you excited about that scene?
Stop.
And like it looked to me, I couldn't tell. Was it like the sap coming out of the wood? I mean, the wood should be dry and the sap also. I don't know. Like what? I know you're giving me that look again. Like you can't say anything. Do you remember your thoughts when you first? Because this is an important scene, and I don't know what to do with it. Can you tell me anything here? I mean, obviously, I don't want to be spoiled, but what can you tell me here?
The first time I watched that, I honestly don't remember. I don't remember this scene like at all. Like it's like I skipped over or something. I just don't remember it.
I don't know. I just thought there's something there, and I don't know what to do with it yet. So I'm just again storing it away in my brain so that I can maybe piece it together down the road to figure out what in the world's going on. I mean, I think there's some with the final scene we saw at the house with something coming out of the wall. Like I want to put these two pieces of information together, but it's like I've got this puzzle and I've got these two pieces and I think they go in the same region and you try to put them together and they don't match up. That's kind of how I feel like about those two pieces. Like I think they go together in the same region, but not directly. So I can't figure out. The picture isn't making sense yet, but I'm getting closer.
All right.
Okay. Fair enough.
Like they knew to go to the buyer's house because they traced the call whenever Joyce got the call of Will just breathing. Like the people from the lab, they were listening to it, or maybe they had it like recorded or something, and they were listening to it, and they went to the buyer's house, and that's how I knew it was there. And then whenever Hopper comes in, like towards the beginning of the episode, saying that they haven't found anything yet, Jonathan suggests that they track the call. And Hopper says it doesn't work like that, and he changed the subject.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're right. I thought, and that's really interesting, because my understanding was that the scientists had like a wiretap on the police phone system. Like what they heard was Joyce calling Flo, and not that they had intercepted the call from Will to Joyce. But if they, and I'm not sure. So, but if they had, because it's one thing to just keep a tap on the police station like that's definitely something that could be done. But if they're also able to monitor Joyce's phone or somehow find that call, and I don't know. It's interesting. Okay, I'll keep an eye out for that. Okay, a couple things about 11 I want to talk about. So she's still obviously at Mike's house. And this is when it's just her and Mike. Mike has skipped school. His mom isn't home yet. And they have fun in the lazy boy.
That is so adorable. Yeah. I love that part.
I guess that's the same scene where they see the TV and stuff. Now they're back up, I guess, either down in the basement or his room. And he's showing her the trophies. But she sees that picture and she notices Will. And she recognizes Will. So now I'm really confused because I don't understand the timeline. And I think I made some assumptions based on the information we got in the last episode that were wrong. So my assumption was that whenever the Demogorgon escaped the lab, that 11 also escaped at that same time. Therefore, she was out of the lab before, because we saw the Demogorgon encounter Will on the road and then at the house. So if she escaped at the same time as the Demogorgon, then she would have never seen Will. But then, even with that, if she didn't escape at the same time as the Demogorgon, that means that the Demogorgon would have had to have taken Will back to wherever she was. We know she escaped from the lab, and that doesn't make sense either. So I'm really confused, unless it's her mental abilities to see through time and space or whatever abilities that she has. So I don't know how she was able to recognize Will, but the fact that she did is obviously significant and made an impact on Mike and was one of those factors in helping him convince the boys. But again, I just can't figure out how that's even possible at this point. Can you say anything on this?
I don't really know.
Okay. Okay, fair enough. The other thing I wanted to point out here is, so that's when the mom gets home and he has to hide her in the closet. We saw her freak out when he tried to close the door on the bathroom. We didn't even talk about when she almost changed clothes in front of all of them.
That was hilarious.
Dustin's reaction was hilarious. All of them's reaction, but then Dustin kept mimicking it and stuff like that, knocked his hat off, he was couldn't get it out of his. That was hilarious. Dustin was fantastic. But anyway, he has to lock her in the closet and she freaks out. He tries to kind of reassure her, but we see a flashback of her getting locked into this small, confined, dark room. And she's yelling out, "Papa," to the old scientist man. Now, the old scientist man, this guy is significant. He's the guy that the camera stays on a little bit longer than anybody else to let us know that we're supposed to pay attention to this guy. He was one of the scientists at the house in the shed. But I don't know. Okay, and so I've got some more theory. I've got a theory. This is going to come back up in my predictions section. But I don't know. Do you have anything you want to say about this Papa flashback scene?
Well, she probably thinks that he's actually her dad
or granddad. Like some kids call their grandparents. We call it on my mom's side. We call them Nanny and Papa. Papa, Scott. Scott from church. His grandkids call him Papa. So I could see her thinking he's her granddad.
Yeah, that makes sense too.
You got that look again. Okay. I don't.
No, I
want you to spoil anything.
I was thinking that Papa means potato in Spanish.
Potato. She was hungry. That's what it was. potato! Why are you sending me in here without dinner? That's what she was saying. You've cracked it.
Yep, obviously. And my friend earlier, Matt, he texted me and he said, I just got a potato the size of a football. I don't know.
It's a big potato.
Yep.
Okay. So they find Benny, and it just occurred to me, I mean, it's a sad scene, but we learn a couple of neat things in this scene. First off, and I wrote this down, and then basically the deputy said something very similar. Last week we learned that the worst thing that's happened in this town is some owls attacked somebody's head, right?
Yeah.
So now they've had a couple of much more significant things happen in a very short amount of time. They've had a kid go missing, and now a suicide. You know, I'm doing air quotes here because we know it's not a suicide.
They can't see that.
The guy says to him, "Must feel like a big city cop again, huh, Chief?" That's the quote. So that tells me that Hopper used to be a cop in the city. I'm assuming the same city we see Lonnie living in.
Minneapolis. Minneapolis.
Is that what it is?
Yeah, it's that's what they said.
Okay, I missed that. So yeah, interesting. We don't know what brought him back. I don't at this point. You might. But anyway, just another little piece of information I'm tucking away. What'd you think about the scene?
Hopper, whenever he was standing next to Benny and stuff, he said this one's different because in the city, I guess he worked with mostly strangers, and he said this one's different because Benny was my friend.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really sad.
It is sad. I wonder, they seem about the same age, so I wonder if even maybe they'd grown up together as school kids or something like that.
Yeah, maybe.
But it's sad. I'm a little surprised because that lady just seemed to kind of arbitrarily shoot Benny last week, but now we got to look at the bullet wound, and it's definitely like in a spot where you could do it if you killed yourself, and it was staged to look like a suicide. So maybe she's a crack shot. I don't know. I didn't go back and rewatch it.
I noticed that. Yeah, I kind of want to rewatch the scene, but I also don't because Benny. No.
I know, it's a sad scene. Moment of silence for Benny.
I was just thinking that.
All right. Well, back to now we see the search party again, and they find a clue.
Yeah. So I didn't really notice this whenever I watched the episode. Like even after watching it a couple times, I never really noticed this part. But there's like a tunnel, and next to the tunnel, I think it was Mr. Clark. He found a piece of cloth, and I wasn't really sure what it was at first. And then after like looking at it for a little while, I realized that it was actually like a piece of cloth, and it looked like the same pattern of the hospital gown that Elle was wearing whenever you first see her in episode 1.
Well, maybe. I could see that. I haven't gone back and compared them. I assumed it was from Will, and so I was wondering, I thought I should go back and see what shirt he had on to see if it matches his shirt.
Well, yeah, I know it doesn't match his shirt.
Okay.
So, yeah, maybe that's how, because you don't really see where, you see where, like, this tunnel ends, but you don't see, like, where it starts. So maybe she crawled through that tunnel, and that's how she escaped.
I love that. I think you're right. So you're sure that cloth pattern doesn't match Will's shirt?
I'm pretty sure, yeah.
I like that too, because in fact, I think we're going to get to it here in just a couple of minutes. We see her kind of tell the gang of boys that Will is hiding from the Demogorgon, and I don't know what to do with that, but that would make more sense than if Will had gone into the lab. So I like that thought.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Thumbs up to that.
Thanks, bro.
You're welcome. We see, and this is a weird edit to me. Like I didn't understand how we got from search party at the lab. Okay, well, that's good. Let's all call it a night and go home. I mean, I know you guys got to sleep. It just seemed weird because the next time we see Hopper, he's in bed with a woman that we've never met. So, because the last time we saw him, he was sleeping on the couch by himself, which doesn't mean he doesn't have a lady friend or something like that. I don't know. I just thought it was a weird edit. Like, where'd that come from? How'd he get to this spot? Like, I feel like maybe there was something that was left out that would have been a better transition from his story path. So anyway, it's not a big deal. I just thought it was a weird edit point, but
it could be like his daughter's mother, like his wife.
It could be. It could be. I was under the impression that they were estranged or separated or divorced, and she was living in the city. We get a lot of the city, but anyway, I guess I'll find out. He tells her that the last time somebody went missing was 1923. And again, just for reference, here we are in 1983, so that was 60 years earlier. He said the last suicide was in 1961, roughly 20 years earlier. Those are different events and things like that, but it just got me, again, my spidey sense went off, and it may be a false sense here, but you and I have talked a lot so far about Stephen King, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know that we've talked any at all about one of his works called It.
I've heard of that, because Finn Wolfhard's in the remake.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that. I showed you the trailer for that, and that might be why I showed you the trailer for it not too long ago.
I don't remember watching it.
Okay, maybe it was your brother. I know I showed it to your mom. I showed it to somebody in this house because I was super excited, and I had to show it to somebody. I don't know what year that book was written. It came out as a TV miniseries in like sometime in the 80s. And that's really like the last time I interacted with it. I don't know that I've seen the TV miniseries since then. I might have once because I really enjoyed the miniseries. But I was about the age of these kids in this show when it happened or when it was.
Or me, I'm the same age as them too.
Yeah, that's true. If you want to think of it that way. But the premise of that is there is this beast who is in the form of Pennywise the clown, and he lures kids into the sewers. And he lures kids into the sewers, he eats them, he gets his fill, and then he goes dormant. And like every 20 some odd years, he comes back and does this again.
Fun. Yeah.
It's a wholesome entertainment. So I don't know. I just thought, here we have the disappearance of a kid, Barb, who's a high school student, still, a kid, a minor, who disappears here at the end of the episode. Here we have intervals of 20. We have 1923. We skip the 40s. We go to the 60s. Now we're back into the 80s. So I don't know. It just gave me the feels for It. And the kids would get dragged down into the sewers. I already mentioned the Evil Dead poster, the lady getting dragged down. So again, I'm going to put these pieces together here in my prediction segment. But just to say, this scene gave me the It feels.
Cool.
Okay. So that took way much longer than it probably needed to. Sorry about that.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I want to go see It with my friends. So not you, my friends.
Thanks. Okay. All the kids back in the house. The D&D board is out. And this is where 11 tells them that Will is hiding from the Demogorgon. Please tell me your thoughts on this scene.
All right. So she yeets all the pieces off the board. Yeah. She turns it over, and then she puts I think it was a wizard or something like that.
I think so.
She calls it Will, puts it in the middle, and then she gets the Demogorgon, puts it right next to him. So it kind of reminds me of like Jumanji or something with the game coming to life.
I like that.
But I just not thought of that. So
yeah. So I don't know what to do with this. I don't know what to do with Will hiding from the Demogorgon, other than to take it literally at this point. Yeah, we didn't really talk about the scene either, where she kind of shows off her superpowers by shutting the door when they were trying to go tell Mike Wazowski's mom about her, and then she starts bleeding from the nose. But again, information I'm packing away as a clue. Okay, let's talk about the final two scenes. Both of these are fantastic or important, significant. I mentioned earlier that I was going to talk about Winona Ryder. This scene, okay, so she goes, we've seen earlier in her character arc in this, she lashed out at Hopper, she goes and gets the phone, she hooks up the phone and she sits down in that chair waiting, hoping that it rings. And then she falls asleep doing that. It rings. She springs to life. She answers it, and it's Will. And this time she gets a little bit more. She actually hears his voice and him call her name. And then the phone shocks her. And
he doesn't say her name. He says mom.
Yes. Thank you for clarifying that. And she loses it. She's just yelling and she's broken. I mean, Winona Ryder is just killing it. She's doing so good. All of her scenes are so emotional. I can't imagine how hard it would be. Every scene you're in, you are on the razor's edge, about to snap, emotions raw, and she's just delivering it time after time. I'm just blown away with Winona Ryder's performance. And this scene to me was just incredible. She was amazing in this scene.
She said, in real life, of course, she said that it was difficult to play the part of Joyce Byers because she has to cry. And I understand that because I had to cry in my class play, and that did not go well.
Yeah, it's not easy.
Yeah, it's really not.
Yeah. Some actors, they'll do different things. They'll either put drops, or they'll even make their eyes tear up or something like that. And then some actors can just do it, That's gotta be hard.
The only reason it was difficult for me is because my character was just a crybaby.
Just like you.
The king in the play yelled at me, and I sat down and cried. Like, dude.
That's funny. I remember Jorge Garcia. We met him we went to a Lost event in Hawaii a couple of years ago. There's a scene when he finds out Charlie, I'm a rock star.
Blah, 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 blah.
Died, and he cries. And they shoot these scenes over and over again, and he was like, by the end of it, I had no tears left. Like I was just going through the motions of crying, but no tears could come out. My tear ducts were dry. So that's another challenge they face.
All right, bye, friend.
Yeah. So anyway, shout out to or just giving credit to Winona Ryder. She did amazing in that scene. Okay, let's talk about the pool party scene. I meant to mention in the last episode our discussion about the vanishing of Will Byers. There was a song there that caught my eye. I think it was by Jefferson Airplane. That's not right. The song was White Rabbit. And of course, White Rabbit points back to,
I don't know, Alice in Wonderland?
Yeah, Alice in Wonderland. So she follows the White Rabbit down the hole, right?
Yeah.
And then her crazy adventure starts. And so that White Rabbit is used as imagery and analogy everywhere. And all Fringe used it, Lost used it, all kinds of shows use it, just as if nothing else, a metaphor for the beginning of a journey, and usually a crazy and dangerous one. So I meant to point that out. I didn't. This time I wanted to definitely point out some of the music here. There's a couple of songs with this pool party scene that I wanted to talk about. One is when Barb and Nancy, they stop on the side of the road, and Nancy changes her shirt and that sort of thing. The song on the radio, did you happen to notice it?
I did not.
It's called Tie a Yellow Ribbon Around the Old Oak Tree.
Yeah, I never would have guessed that.
Yeah, it's a really significant song, and it definitely ties into this. So do you know the significance of tying a ribbon? Have you ever seen someone tie a ribbon around a tree, or is there anything like that?
No, why would you do that?
Well, sometimes people still do it today.
It's kind of weird.
Well, not really. So you see it in times, particularly of war. And that's really where it started. I think it started back in the Civil War. When the men would come home, it was a signal of them still being welcomed. The soldier has been off. He's been away. He's changed. He's been subjected to things. He's done things. He's seen things that are changing him. And the question is, am I still welcome here? Do you still want me based on who I am today, the things I've gone through, so on and so forth? And so you would tie a yellow ribbon, and I read a little bit on it, and there's some question of whether it originated like maybe a bow in your hair or around your neck. The girls would do that just to kind of let them know, yes, you're still welcome here. And then through other wars, I can remember in like the Gulf War and things like that, people would still tie ribbons around their trees just to show support for our men and women in uniform who are off in far-reached places fighting, and just let them know we're thinking about them and we welcome them back when they're able to make it, that sort of thing. Significance here is thinking about Will. He's gone. He's off. He's in a dangerous situation. When he comes back, he may not be the same as when he left. And so just that song playing in the background, and a little bit of foreshadowing maybe to Barb. Barb gets, I don't know if she's alive or dead. But anyway, so that's a significant song. So do you still think it's silly and weird?
No, not really.
Okay, so then we get to the pool party. Do you remember what song was playing when they were out at the pool?
Something by the Beach Boys. I don't remember what it was.
It was not the Beach Boys.
It wasn't?
No, gosh. Now you're going to make me think of who it was, and I'm going to draw a blank.
I'm going to go right.
Okay. No, don't watch it, but the name of the song is I Melt With You. Do you know anything about this song?
Oh, okay. Modern English, is that who it's by?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's right. Nice Google job.
Thanks.
So do you know anything about the song?
I've heard it, but
Yeah, it's played. It's probably, it's played everywhere. TV, films, all the time. It's about a couple who are, shall we say, being romantic together as the world is getting hit by a nuclear bomb. And so fun. I melt with you, because the bomb melts everything. And to me, the symbolism here is, think about it. This town, something significant is happening. Will has been abducted. Will's a close friend to Nancy's brother. Nancy has just shunned Barb. Barb is out there getting gobbled while she and Steve are melting together, or whatever you want to tell you, for a term it, right? So it was a nice little symbolic song to be a good song choice for that moment.
Thanks for that.
You're welcome. What did you think about the way Nancy treated Barb?
That was very not nice.
Yeah, I felt so bad for Barb. She was all sad out by the pool. Okay, her blood drops into the pool, and I'm assuming it's the Demogorgon, instantly shows up. Again, we talked about...
And then you see the lights and stuff.
That's right. We talked about Spielberg, right? One of Spielberg's movies was...
Jaws.
Jaws is right. Yes, Steven Spielberg movie. So, I don't know if there's a tie-in there or not, just worth mentioning. But I thought it was really interesting that her blood drops in the water, and then instantly the monster shows up. So...
And then Jonathan's over here taking pictures like a creep.
He is. Yep.
He heard screaming, so I guess he thought like someone was...
He did, yeah.
Being
And I think
taken.
he kind of... Nancy was super nice to him. Again, talking about kids who are going out of their way to be nice, She
was so awkward during that scene. I just thought she was so awkward whenever she was talking to him. She was just like, oh, well, your brother's gone. That sucks.
Yeah, but what do you say in a situation like that? It would be completely awkward, but... She was really nice and stepped out when her other friends were like making fun of him and stuff. So again, both of the Wazowski kids are doing a really good job of being their own person, even when their friends around them are influencing them to do otherwise.
Wheeler. Their last name was Wheeler.
That's what I said.
You said Wazowski.
What is your infatuation with Monsters, Inc.?
Stop breathing. Thanks. And I wonder if Jonathan thinks she wasn't really being sincere or whatever, since she turns around and she looks at all her friends and then they're just all staring at them.
I don't think so. I think that's why he was taking pictures. It's one thing to hear the screams and go to the house and you're like, oh, it's kids having a pool party, whatever. But then he saw it was Nancy and he was like, oh, I kind of got the hots for Nancy because she was nice to me. Snap, snap, snap. That's what I think. I think he really thought that she was I think he could tell that, awkward as it may be, she was being sincere.
I don't know. I thought he was just, he's into photography. And you take pictures of everything. So okay, is it just me or the pictures he was taking of random sticks? Did that make no sense to you? After, because it showed the picture after he took it and it didn't seem like there was anything like important in that picture.
I'm glad you said that. I thought the same thing. I'm even like looking at like each time I watch the episode, I'm like, okay, what's in this? A tire? Okay, a twig? What am I missing? What, you know? And the pictures turned out way better than they would have with that camera, even with the flash. But yeah, I don't know. I thought that was weird too. And back in those days, you know, you saw him. He had his head down when the Demogorgon attacked. Do you know what he was doing?
No.
So you could tell he was like winding on the camera, because you know that was back when you had rolls of film, and you usually had like 24 or 36 pictures you could take, and then once you had snapped all those frames on a roll, you had to wind the film back into the canister so that it was sealed in darkness until you could get it developed, because if it's exposed to light, the pictures are ruined. And then you could put in another roll and take, you know, depending on the size of the roll, either 24 or 36 more shots. And so, you know, that's the way cameras worked before digital cameras came along. So anyway, that's what he was doing. He had filled up his roll and was winding it back into the canister so he could swap out and put in another roll.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that was before the days where you could take 1,000 pictures and then never look at them again, because, you know, they're on your phone and you can look at them anytime, which means never.
And then, you know, waste all your storage and then not want to delete them because, you know, you've had them for 2 years.
Yeah, even though you never looked at them. Yeah.
But they're sentimental, you know.
We used to have to take pictures. We were limited on how many we could take. We didn't know what they looked like until we took them to the local Walmart or the film developing place, and they would give them to us, and we'd flip through them, and then we'd put them in these photo boxes, and you'd have all these drawers full of photos, and you'd pull them out like once a year, and you'd go through all these photos and be like, oh yeah, remember that was so cool, da 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 da. That doesn't happen anymore. Now we have more photos and we look at them less. I sound like an old man. Get off my lawn right now. It's like, get off my lawn.
Or for you to us, you're like, go mow my lawn.
That's true. All right. Speaking of going to mow the lawn, do you have any other things you'd like to say about this episode?
How does it have to do with mowing the lawn?
It has nothing. That's called a fake segue.
Nope, I'm good.
All right. Well, in that case, let's get to the notes from the Upside Down and see what the listeners had to say this week. All right, we have Dos Feedbackos this week. We have Jeff, X-Force 11, who we heard from last week, but we also have a newcomer to our podcast, no stranger to Golden Spiral Media, Karen. Now, you remember last week I asked the listeners if they would give us some info on the X-Men 134? Mm-hmm. Karen to the rescue. Here she is.
Hi, guys. This is Karen. I'm leaving feedback for the Stranger Things podcast. First of all, I'm really loving you two together because, Addi, you have such a great enthusiasm for the show. And that's great to see someone so young getting into this and seeing all the pop culture references, and then your dad telling you about them, because he and I are the same generation and we kind of lived through them, and we experienced the nostalgia while you get to kind of see them for the first time. And that's really cool. So I wanted to talk about the second episode, which is Chapter 2, The Weirdo on Maple Street. First, I want to preface this with a little information about the X-Men comic that was featured in the first episode. And Darrell knows that I'm one of those people that he referenced in your first episode that is a geek and likes reading comics. And I do know a little bit. I'm a DC person, but I know quite a bit about the X-Men. And the Dark Phoenix saga is one of those epic, iconic runs in comics. This is when Jean Grey was first finding out about her powers, and it attracted the attention of a supervillain called the Mastermind, who used her, I guess he got inside her mind, and he tried to get her powers. He made her believe that she was reliving memories of an ancestor, that she was someone else, and she kind of tapped into all her powers. And she has telekinesis, telepathy. She can do other things. She has very big powers, and they're akin to Eleven's powers. And not unlike the flash we saw in this episode of her in this facility, she was also being experimented on. I mean, that was pretty evident in this episode that she had been in some sort of prison. And the tattoo of her having a number that is very telling as to how she was treated in that facility. There's more about this comic run that kind of parallels along with the show, but I can't get further into it because it parallels almost literally with the show in certain parts, and I don't want to spoil anything. So if I do manage to get my feedback in on those episodes, I'll bring that up. But I do, if you have watched Stranger Things already and it wouldn't spoil anything for you, I recommend reading the X-Men 129 through 138. That is the Dark Phoenix saga. Okay, so this episode was awesome. First of all, Barb, I was kind of a Barb. I was a little cooler than her, though, because I played sports. I mean, not that there's anything wrong with Barb. She's awesome. But anyway, I loved her in this episode. There was a lot of interesting things that happened. I love the music in this show. There's a scene in this episode where Eleven sees the D&D set. She picks up Will's figurine and they marvel at that. Superpowers, they say. And she holds it up and she says, Will, and then she turns the board upside down, which is, a foreshadowing thing, and sets his piece on the other side, sweeps everything else off the board, sets his piece on the other side, and it's not the bad man, it's the monster, and that he's hiding. And that is a big piece of foreshadowing, just to keep that in mind. And of course, it leaves the episode with them knowing that she has some information. So now she isn't going to get turned in by the boys. Barb has been taken, and of course the brother has seen it now and doesn't have it on film, which is weird. We see Will's mom looking like she's a little crazy, but she's not. So there's going to be something going on there. And the electricity and the walls in the apartment are going to be a big part of the next couple of episodes. So keep your eye on that as well. The dad is a jerkwad. I can't stand him. And I can't wait to hear your next couple of episodes. So I'm sorry this was so long, but I did want to get in the stuff about the Dark Phoenix saga. So again, can't wait to listen to the next few episodes. Addi, you're doing a great job. And I really love that you got into this podcasting thing with your dad. So thanks a lot.
Thank you. That was great.
I'm doing great too. Thanks, Karen. You are doing great. I love doing this podcast with you.
Thanks, bro.
Yeah. Oh gosh, Karen, that was so full of goodness. This is the first time I've heard it. She messaged me and told me some of the pieces that we're going to be talking about. That's how I knew that she was going to be talking about X-Men. But so much goodness. I missed a couple of fine details that she picked up on. One, that she'd turned the board upside down. I totally noticed that, but I didn't pick up on the significance of it. And I guess I wasn't supposed to at this point. Like, upside down isn't a phrase I'm supposed to have heard at this point, even though I have. And I missed the fact that that the wizard was Will's character. You and I talked about the wizard piece, but I didn't realize that was Will's
know it was his character.
Yeah. Awesome stuff. Thanks, Karen. And yeah, if you don't get a chance to send in your feedback episode to episode, at the very least, maybe when we reach episode 8 or chapter 8, if you think of it, send us in your feedback at that point and kind of bring us up to speed on the Dark Phoenix parallels to Stranger Things. I think I would love that, and hopefully the rest of the listeners would as well. Cool. All right. Thank you, Karen. Let's move on to Jeff.
Transmissions from the Upside Down. Hello, Darrell and Addi. This is Jeff Gentry, X-Force 11, calling in about Chapter 2. While I love Chapter 1 and it sets us up so well with so much of the mystery, I really enjoyed chapter 2 because we get to know 11 much better, and we get to know the boys better, and we just get so much more of the mystery and the story just drawn in. And I just really think that episode 2 is where it really kicks off on the series. I'm really excited to hear what y'all have to say about it, and I just think it's a great series, and it has so many twists and turns, and episode 2, chapter 2 just kicks it off. So thanks for doing the podcast. Talk to y'all soon. X-Force 11 out.
All right. Thanks, Jeff. Jeff is also the first person in the world to leave us an iTunes review for this podcast. So thanks, Jeff.
Cool. Thanks.
Yeah. If you are so inclined to leave us a review in iTunes or whatever your favorite podcasting app is, we would be eternally grateful and wish upon you a box of tasty Eggos.
No, you worded that really weird. Okay.
I probably did. But yeah, thanks, Jeff. We love this episode too. We loved the scenes with the boys in 11 just made the episode. Completely agree.
Yeah, they're like the whole reason I only watched it. Like, okay, the lab part's cool too, but like the group of kids, they're the best.
Yeah, they really are. All right. Well, we would love to have you send in your feedback for the next episode, chapter 3. And you can do that by going over to goldenspiralmedia.com/feedback. There you can type out a contribution. You can attach an audio file like Jeff did. You can even use the SpeakPipe widget that we have there on that webpage, or you can simply call our voicemail messaging system. That number is 304-837-2278. You just leave a message like any other voicemail. It'll come to us and we'll play it on the show. You know, they can also follow us and interact with us on social media.
Oh, yeah, they can. We should probably tell them. So our Instagram is Stranger Things GSM. Our Twitter is Upside Down GSM. And our Facebook is facebook.com/groups/Stranger Things GSM.
Indeed. All right, Addison, what did you pick for the quote of the week this week?
Okay, this one was really hard. So I had 3 choices. One of them you heard for the opening. So the quote of the week is, I had 2 bologna sandwiches for lunch. I don't know why. And Dustin says this whenever he's eating dinner at the Wheeler's house. And yeah, our second place was whenever Mike is talking to Nancy and he says, what was your test on again? Human anatomy? Because she was studying. Yeah. So that's the quote of the week.
All right, let's give it a listen.
Something wrong with the meatloaf?
Oh, no, I had 2 bologna sandwiches for lunch. I don't know why.
Me too. It's delicious, Mommy.
Thank you, sweetie.
So, there's this special assembly thing tonight for Will at the school field. Barb's driving.
Why am I just hearing about this?
I thought you knew.
I told you, I don't want you out after dark until Will is found.
I know, but it'd be super weird if I'm not there. I mean, everyone's going.
Just be back by 10. Why don't you take the boys, too?
No!
Don't you think you should be there? For Will?
Sorry. Spasm.
That is a funny scene. Love it. I like when Dustin hits the table and, you know, Mike chokes on his milk. Or was that Dustin that chokes? I think it was Mike that choked on his milk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mike chokes on his milk. And then Dustin says, sorry, I spazzed out.
Yeah, spasm. Yeah. Such a good one. All right.
Adorable.
Time for predictions.
Time for me to laugh at you.
Probably so. I feel like I don't have as many predictions this week. And okay, so as I mentioned earlier in the episode, I'm trying to stay spoiler free, but this show has just swept through pop culture over the last almost year now. And so I've picked up on things. I mean, obviously the upside down is something that I'm very aware of it being a thing that exists. I mentioned this, I think, in our intro episode when I came up with our logo where the word podcast is upside down. I'm like, I thought this might be cool. I have no idea what upside down means, and I still don't. But I'm starting to piece some things together. And if I didn't know the phrase upside down, I don't think I'd be able to piece these things together. So that's my disclaimer. So I think, based on some of the imagery that we saw with the Evil Dead poster and the Spidey senses I got for it, I think that Will has been taken to an underground layer. And I think that because of the Evil Dead poster, or maybe he's hiding underground. And when I hear underground, that makes me think upside down. Again, I wouldn't think of upside down had I not already been familiar with that word in this show. So when I think of upside down, I think of, I'm just, because I'm still not satisfied with that theory. Like, okay, what does that mean? I think of a reflection. So if I'm looking at a lake, for example, you see the sky at the horizon, but if you look on the lake, you see the same thing and it's upside down. It's a reflection. It's almost like the same thing, but from a different angle, right? Which makes me think of like alternate universes. This is my fringe probably coming to me at this point. So I'm going to theorize that there's some sort of like that the upside down, that Will is in the upside down, and that the upside down is some sort of like alternate universe, parallel universe, however you want to phrase that. I don't know if that makes any sense or not, but that's what I'm going with. And that's kind of, again, I'm cheating. I feel like I'm cheating on that because I don't think I would have come up with that if I didn't know the phrase upside down. And I shouldn't know that phrase at episode 2, even though we got a huge clue that Karen just pointed out. But I missed that clue. So
congratulations, Dad.
So I feel like I'm cheating. I'm not sure if Barb is there too. Like, I don't know if Barb just became Demogorgon dinner or if she's still alive and like the Demogorgon has a lair and he has taken her to the lair. I would think that Will is at the lair too, but 11 told us that Will is hiding from the Demogorgon. So I don't know. I don't know what to do with Barb, if she's dead or not, but it doesn't look good for her. And I feel like she and Will are in different places. Maybe even one's alive, one's dead, meaning she's dead, he's not. My other prediction goes back to 11 and her saying Papa. And I love what Karen said here, where she said in the X-Men, this gave me a new theory, or maybe feel better about my theory. She said in the X-Men comic that there was some mind control going on, like what they were putting into her false memories and things like that, and Jean Grey. So that could be what's happening. Like I'm struggling with, why would 11 call him Papa? But maybe they had projected onto her false memories or a false identity or a false relationship to make her, to manipulate her or to experiment as an experiment or something like that. So that her calling him Papa could be nothing more than that. So that's a new thing just since I heard Karen's feedback. What I have in my notes here is that maybe she's a clone. And it reminded me of, I think Fringe did this, and I think the X-Files did this, where there were a series of clones that had then been, so they were developed in a lab, and then they were taken and separated and put to live with different families who, from the sake of the parental units or the authority figures in the family, they were an experiment in the home. But from the perspective of the child, this is their parent, their real dad and mom, or their real grandpa, whatever it is. And so probably because of my background with Fringe and X-Files, that was one thought. But then I'm like, man, that still doesn't quite feel right. A clone set in the 80s. I don't feel like if they were going to make her a clone, because the first clone that was made known to the world was in I don't know if it was the early 90s, like Dolly the sheep. You ever heard of Dolly the sheep?
No.
Yeah. She was the first clone, that was made public. I'm not saying it didn't happen before then. And obviously it took years to get to that point. But so what I'm saying, but the idea of a show set in 1983 It just seems like a stretch that she would be a clone.
The show is literally called Stranger Things.
That's true. That's true. So I'm not ruling it out. I just don't feel as comfortable with that. So then that leads me to aliens. Then I feel less comfortable about that. I mean, it's like aliens can be the answer to everything, and it's the easy way out. Is she an alien, or is there some alien technology at play? Is the Demogorgon an alien? I don't know. Alien? I might be. I'm going to say no on the alien. I did want to just throw it out there to kind of get my opinion on it. I hope it's not aliens because I feel like, they're going to have to work hard to make me appreciate that. So that's all I have for predictions this week.
Okay.
All right. So, Addi, what do we have in the Hawkins report this week?
So, Loot Crate has a limited edition Stranger Things crate. And if you go to www.goldenspiralmedia.com/loot, you save $5 and we earn $5.
That's right. I got an email about that today from them, which I thought was interesting because it's been on sale for, I think, a week now from when we're recording. We're recording this on June 22nd, and it's already been on sale for several days. And yet I got the first email from them about it today, but it is limited. I'm nervous because we haven't got it yet, but I don't want to get it yet either.
Wait. Order it.
We have to wait before we can order it. So anyway, that would be good. So if you want to check that out, do you remember from me telling you last week what the value of the Loot Crate is said to be?
$111.
That's right.
They're selling it at $60 with $10 shipping. So that's $70.
Right. That's right.
How did I remember all that?
You have a good memory. You're smart. The other thing is the same thing as last week, the Stranger Things merchandise. That link is goldenspiralmedia.com/shop. And you can find some Stranger Things inspired stuff and some Golden Spiral Media stuff. And we'll be adding some more stuff to it from the network as time goes on. All right. Well, before we get out of here, we have one last thing to discuss. The meme of the week.
The meme of the week. So this meme of the week is SpongeBob. So most of them are just different pictures of SpongeBob, but he has like a different look in each picture, but some of them are different. So it's just describing each character on Stranger Things. So 11 is...
These are great. Just looking over these. These are awesome.
So the one for 11... SpongeBob has Mr. Krabs, and he's just like holding him up. The one for Lucas is just like this really skeptical face. And Dustin, did you look at the one for Dustin?
Yeah, he has no teeth.
Dustin's just like, duh. He's adorable. I just love it. And then Nancy's is just, like a lady SpongeBob, like a girly girl. And Steve is just like this dude with the hair, of course, the hair. And then you have Benny looking at a burger. And Joyce.
I almost started laughing out loud when I had to hold back.
So it's like a picture of SpongeBob like screaming, but in the background you can also see just like this chill SpongeBob like dancing, and it's hilarious.
It's like SpongeBob is tripping really on drugs.
Yep.
Which Joyce seems like she's doing.
And the Demogorgon one, it's just SpongeBob going through a wall, which is beautiful. So yeah, that's the meme of the week.
Very good. Well, you can find that and the notes on this episode, as well as a player if you just want to go to the website and listen to it, goldenspiralmedia.com/Stranger Things. And of course, you can also check out the podcast in iTunes or Google Play or your favorite podcast app of choice. Addi, any final words of wisdom before we shut her down for the night?
Always watch Stranger Things and don't forget to stay strange.